Do traditional retirement metrics still matter? Or are we just clinging to the financial equivalent of a flip phone in a smartphone world? Buckle up, because the answer might actually surprise you, and it has real money on the line. The safe withdrawal rate, that famous 4% rule, was born in 1994 from a study by William Bengen, and it basically told an entire generation that you could pull 4% from your portfolio annually and probably not run out of money before you run out of heartbeats. But here's the thing, that study was built on a world of 8% bond yields, moderate valuations, and a life expectancy that didn't account for you casually living to 95 on a green juice and pickleball diet. Glide paths are the other half of this duo, the idea that as you age, you automatically shift from stocks to bonds like a financial conveyor belt, moving you toward safety. It sounds elegant and responsible, like wearing a seatbelt, except someone forgot to mention that the seatbelt was designed for a car going 40 miles per hour, and you're now doing 110 on a monetary policy highway with no guardrails. The optimism around these rules peaked somewhere in the 1990s and 2000s, when bonds actually paid you to own them, and markets rewarded patience with almost embarrassing generosity. Fast forward to today, and you have near zero to negative real yields, sequence of returns risk that can destroy a retirement in the first 5 years, and a generation of retirees realizing that their glide path gently glided them straight into a fixed income dead zone. The psychological weight of this realization is genuinely heavy. Imagine building your entire retirement identity around a rule, only to have PhDs start publicly questioning whether 4% should actually be closer to 2.7 or 3%. Wade Pfau, one of the most respected voices in retirement research, has been quietly sounding alarms for years, while others insist the 4% rule is fine, and honestly, both camps have enough data to make a compelling argument, which is either reassuring or terrifying depending on your current account balance. History is littered with these cycles. The pension era gave way to the 401k era, which gave way to the self-directed retirement era, and every single transition felt unprecedented to the people living through it, even though the underlying tension between longevity, inflation, and return assumptions has always been the same fundamental problem. We've seen Japanese retirees experience a lost decade. American retirees survived 2 massive crashes in a single decade between 2000 and 2010, and somehow, the 4% rule kept its reputation intact, mostly because people selectively remember the wins. Here's the brutal irony. The 4% rule survives partly because most people don't actually follow it perfectly. They spend less in bad years instinctively, which is behavioral adaptation masquerading as mathematical validation. Think of the rule less like a law of physics and more like a speed limit technically meaningful, frequently fudged, and mostly useful as a social coordination tool rather than an absolute truth. One of the biggest misconceptions is that abandoning the 4% rule means abandoning structure entirely, but that's like throwing out your GPS because it got one direction wrong and deciding to navigate by vibes. The smarter move is dynamic withdrawal strategies, bucket approaches, and spending flexibility, all of which are evolutions of the original framework, not replacements for it. The practical lesson history keeps teaching us is that rigid rules fail rigid followers. The retirees who survived 2008 weren't the ones with the most precise withdrawal spreadsheet. They were the ones with enough flexibility and cash cushion to not sell equities at the bottom. Moderate risk, maintained through unemotional discipline, a clear process, and honest position sizing, has consistently outperformed both the overconfident and the paralyzed across every market cycle we can measure. Glide paths specifically deserve a serious second look because the conventional stock to bond shift assumes bonds are a safe harbor. And for most of financial history, they were. But a rising rate environment can devastate bond portfolios just as aggressively as a stock. Correction, which means your glide path could actually be a glide toward the problem, not away from it. Some researchers now advocate for a rising equity glide path in early retirement, which sounds completely backwards until you model out sequence of returns risk and realize that having more equities when you're most vulnerable to market drops is only crazy until the math says it isn't. What this really boils down to philosophically is that no rule survives contact with an individual life unchanged. Your withdrawal rate isn't 4%. It's your number, shaped by your spending flexibility, your other income sources, your health trajectory, and your psychological relationship with volatility. Discipline, sizing, and consistency will always matter more than finding the perfect rule. Because the perfect rule doesn't exist and never did. The comfort in all of this, strangely, is that preparation beats prediction every single time. You don't need to know whether 4% or 3% is correct if you've built enough flexibility into your plan to adapt when reality diverges from the model, which it always will. Being okay with uncertainty isn't financial nihilism. It's the most rational position available to someone operating in an inherently unpredictable system. So yes, traditional metrics still matter, not as commandments carved in stone, but as starting points for a conversation that should be revisited every few years, stress tested against real conditions, and held loosely enough to evolve. The 4% rule and glide path thinking are less like answers and more like the questions that force you to think clearly about money, time, and what retirement actually means to you. If you're rethinking your financial roadmap, feeling uncertain about whether your current plan holds up under modern conditions, or just realizing you've been following rules without questioning the assumptions underneath them, that's actually the healthiest place to start. And if any of this got the gears turning on your next chapter, whether that's real estate investing, home contracting projects, or finding the right lender to make a move, check out our links in the description below and let's figure it out together.